Do you recognize this face? If so, you could help solve a mystery that has haunted investigators for the past 21 years.
Who is she?
Where she came from, why she was in the condition she was at, why was she hitchhiking, was she running from something?
Her name could be Susan, Suzanne, or Suzette. She was approximately 30 years of age, and she could have lived in South Florida or perhaps Nevada. What is known for certain is she was the 6th of 8 victims of a murderer known as the Happy Face Killer.
Back in 1994, the skeletal remains of a young girl were found just off of I-10 at the Holt exit in Okaloosa County, Florida.
Special Agent Dennis Haley is a 30-year veteran of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
And it was determined that this girl had been there approximately anywhere between 6 weeks to 3 months. And at that point, we're trying to identify who she is and what happened to her.
While her identity is still unknown, Special Agent Haley found detailed information on what happened to the woman just a year later, when a man named Hunter Jesperson identified himself as the killer. At that time, Jesperson, a former long-haul truck driver, was already serving 7 consecutive life sentences in the Oregon State Penitentiary for the murders of 8 women in several states across the country. When 2 people took credit for and were then convicted of one of those murders, Jesperson's ego and quest for notoriety couldn't let it stand. He began writing letters to the Oregonian newspaper in Portland, taking credit for the homicides he had committed.
He would always sign them with a happy face, so he was dubbed the Happy Face Killer.
Okaloosa County authorities interviewed Jesperson, whose knowledge of the details of this case convinced them he was indeed the killer.
He said that she was from Miami, Florida, that he picked her up at a truck stop at Tampa, Florida. Her name was Susan or Suzette, and she was on her way to Reno, Nevada.
But she would never get there. While at a rest stop on I-10 near Pensacola, Jesperson raped and strangled the woman in the sleeper cab of his truck and later dumped her body in the tree line along the highway.
Back in 1995, we actually had a reconstruction done of the skeletal remains of the skull, and this is what they came up with.
But despite being entered into national databases, she was never identified. And that could be because, according to her killer, the original reconstruction didn't resemble the victim.
Here was what I first started with. This was my layout on the skull.
In 2014, entered Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office forensic imaging specialist Paul Moody, who Haley requested work directly with Jesperson to create an updated reconstruction of the victim.
I managed to start writing him. We conversed back and forth via snail mail for several months. And eventually, a lot of detail came out. He had described this girl to a T.
Jesperson, like many long-term inmates, had become an amateur artist while behind bars, and according to Moody, was better than average.
Well, now I at least know that he can visualize something. He finally suggested, maybe I can draw her. And of course, I was happy with that. Go ahead, give it a shot. And this is what I ended up with. He said this was probably, on a scale of 1 to 10, this was probably a 9 as far as he was concerned about what she looked like. This drawing is going to have to fit our skull.
Moody used that drawing with the skull to create a new digital reconstruction, including the torso with eye color, a full-length image with the dress found at the crime scene, along with a leather sash with brass geometric figures, a Native American-like bracelet, and tarot cards Jesperson said she had used on the trip. An examination of her teeth revealed the victim had routinely seen a dentist and wore braces in her earlier years. And when he sent the new digital reconstruction back to Jesperson to review, Moody says the letter he got in return made him hopeful this mystery may finally be solved.
He said, when I opened up the package, it was like a rush of emotion running through me. I saw her again in your picture. He maintains this is her, no two ways about it. We feel very confident that we've got a very good image that we can post to the public and hopefully get their help, identify this girl and at least get her a name and hopefully get the remains back to the family.
For both Moody and Haley, successfully solving this case of identity would help answer some long-standing questions and provide them both with some closure as well.
And I can't help but think of what some of these people went through the last hour or two they were alive.
This is one of those cases that bothers you, and I would like to identify this girl before I do retire. Those are the cases that always haunt homicide investigators.
If you recognize this woman, please contact Special Agent Dennis Haley using the information on the screen. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office would also like to thank Mr. M. William Phelps of the investigation discovery show Dark Minds for his assistance in this case.